Welcome, everybody, to another Notre Dame recruiting mailbag. I'm your host, Tom Loy, here at irishillustrated.com and 24/7 Sports. We've done this Notre Dame recruiting mailbag a couple weeks now, so let's just dive right into it. Simple Q&A, and I'll answer your questions. Head Designs, first question: if Tommy Reese were to leave Notre Dame after this season, does that present any risk to CJ Carr staying committed? And also, how does any uncertainty around Reese affect the ability to recruit another top 2024 quarterback if Carr reclassifies? First part of the question, I really don't think it's going to impact Carr too much if Reese were to pursue a different opportunity after this season. I think it would have some impact, but in the end, I think that Carr chose Notre Dame for a variety of reasons. All of those reasons are going to stay the same when he does go to put pen to paper and sign his letter of intent. So I do expect him to stick kind of regardless. I know he and Marcus Freeman have really hit it off since day one. Both Freeman and Carr, as well as Carr and the entire coaching staff, Freeman and the entire family. So there's a really good, strong connection there, and I don't think Reese's departure would necessarily push him out of the class. And then, yeah, I mean, if Carr were to reclassify, then I think that the key at that point would be to focus on some of the top 24 quarterbacks in the country and see who'd want to join and or follow Carr behind him. And Julian Sayin, five-star quarterback, we've talked about him a million times. When it came down to Carr committing, the other top guy was Julian Sayin. So he's a guy that Notre Dame would absolutely target. I'm not necessarily sure whether, one way or the other, whether he would want to follow Carr or join Carr, in that 24 class. So in a perfect world for Notre Dame fans and the Fighting Irish staff, you get Carr in 23, get him to reclassify, and then you get Sayin to follow him. Ever to excel, rank these outcomes from most likely to least likely with regards to 2023 quarterback recruiting. I'm starting to see a theme here. 1, Carr reclassifies to 2023. 2, Notre Dame takes an undergrad. 3, Notre Dame takes a graduate transfer. And 4, Notre Dame signs a quarterback in the 23 class not named CJ Carr. Or 5, none of the above. Most likely to least likely. I would say that right now my gut still remains that Carr reclassifies. So I'm keeping an eye on that in 23. I think he's more than ready for the college level, and whether he arrives in next summer or the following January, not a huge gap. But that's a double-edged sword. I mean, it'd be nice to see him get his senior year, get a ton of reps at quarterback, and really flourish and thrive. The other side of is get him on campus as soon as possible, get him working with the Notre Dame staff, get him working with the players, get him around the commits and everybody. Kind of goes both ways. But for me, I'm going to say that my gut feeling on this is that he reclassifies. After that, I would kind of see them. I could see them taking a grad transfer at quarterback just to add to the room if Carr stays in 2024. I don't see an undergrad transfer coming to Notre Dame, and I could see lastly Notre Dame signing a quarterback in 23. Regardless, they're going to get a guy in 23, whether it's Carr or somebody else. So that's kind of a moot point. But like I said, right now my gut is that CJ reclassifies. Subfan, you are a California guy. What are your thoughts on the level of competition Tyler Buchner played in high school, and if that affected his lack of success so far at Notre Dame? No. First of all, the competition wasn't great. I mean, whenever Tyler Buchner stepped on the field, he was the best player on the field. No doubt in my mind. But it's because I'm high on Tyler. I mean, I would say that for a lot of the times when he was in high school. And he was a terrific talent. I think he would have done what he did in high school. Not necessarily to the level that he did and have that type of success, but he was a dynamic playmaker, man. And all these people that are not high on him anymore, I think you are jumping the boat and you're jumping the gun on this, and you are moving way too fast to get rid of Tyler Buchner as a future quarterback for Notre Dame. He is he's a dog. He's an alpha. He is going to battle, and like I said, when he comes back from this injury to his non-throwing shoulder, he's going to be tough to beat out. So, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily give the job away to a grad transfer quarterback and promise any starting jobs or anything like that. You leave it as an open competition, and you let Tyler and the rest of the guys in that room battle it out. And no matter who's in there, the best man will win. And Tyler's going to be tough to beat out next season. I mean, I know you guys, some people question it, but I really do believe that. Tommy Reese asks for your advice on which quarterback he should target and or look at in the 23 class. What 5 names are you giving? Yeah, I'm not going to go with 5 names, but I mean, I said for a while that I would have gone after Ricky Collins, but that may have been a moot point because he ended up flipping from Purdue to LSU. But he was definitely a guy that I really, really liked. And I always liked Avery Johnson. I thought he was a talented kid, a really, really good athlete. I mean, I know when he camped at Notre Dame, he was outperforming, with testing numbers. He was out athleting guys, if you will, that were wide receivers, DBs with their testing numbers. It was pretty ridiculous. So Avery Johnson simply would be the guy that I would target. And I will say there is another kid that I really like. He is a 3-star, and I know Notre Dame knows about him, likes him as well. Got to keep that name quiet for right now, but we'll talk about him soon, I'm sure. But again, right now the number one priority is getting CJ Carr in the 23 class. But after that, like I said, right now Avery Johnson's the guy. Which quarterback do you think ends up in the 23 class? Like I said, my gut says CJ Carr, but I know Notre Dame likes Avery Johnson, and then there's another kid they like as well. But like I said, right now I'm just going to keep that name quiet, just simply because some sources close to the situation have asked as soon as I can release it, and then I'll get the green light on that, and we'll go from there. Pros and cons to Carr reclassifying. Kind of touched on that before. Pros, just getting him into the system as soon as possible. Cons would be, and getting around the playbook, but cons would be just, not getting as many reps that he would have gotten as a senior at Saline. And let's move on to the next guy. We got Dan ND23. Are there any committed prospects elsewhere in the 23 class that Notre Dame is pushing hard for outside of the quarterback position? I mean, we've talked about a couple guys. Jaden Moore that's committed to Oregon. He got the offer and ended up kind of committing quickly to Oregon, and kind of just pulled the trigger. So that makes me think that, like, I know that's 2 ways. One is he knew he was going to Oregon. He got the Notre Dame offer, and he just pulled the trigger because he knew he was ready to commit. 2, he wasn't as high in Notre Dame, got the offer. He was grateful for it, but it wasn't going to impact his recruitment like some thought. He's one of them. We talked about Chandavian Bradley at Tennessee, Caleb Herring also at Tennessee, a couple of 4-star edge rushers. So there's guys out there. Again, I already mentioned Avery Johnson. He's committed to Kansas State. So Kenny Minchie, the Pitt commit at quarterback, but again, I think he's going to stick. So there are guys out there, but right now, like, those are the names to know, the ones that we've mentioned, over the last couple months. Nothing's really changed on that front. KC13 just simply wants a quarterback. All right, we'll move on. You and everybody else. Scott F5, if Carr reclassifies. I'm starting to see a theme here. If CJ Carr reclassifies, what are the chances ND lands Sayin in 24? Touched on that as well. 5-star Julian Sayin. I think that Notre Dame would be in the mix. He's considering schools that are absolutely going to land big-time 23 quarterbacks, or at least a guy in that position, and so it's going to be interesting what he decides to do. So it's not like he's taking some easy way out. If he goes to Texas, he likes them a lot. He's going to have to follow Arch Manning. So does he follow Arch? Does he follow CJ Carr? If Notre Dame can get him to reclassify, it'll be. But he's the guy for Notre Dame. What top 3 wide receiver recruits most likely to land at Notre Dame in 2024? Seeing as Mylan Graham is not a take. I think we touched on this last week. I want to go to the list because I don't want to miss a guy, because I absolutely missed a guy last week and it frustrated me. Ryan Wingo is a guy that I absolutely think could end up at Notre Dame. He's a 5-star out of St. Louis. He would probably make my 3 in the best bet range. And again, we're talking about outside of Cam Williams because he's already committed to 4-star out of Illinois. I think they got a better shot than most realize with Jeremiah McClellan, also out of the St. Louis region. He would be a guy that I would definitely watch. And probably right now, I'd probably lean towards Emmett Mosley, the double legacy out of Santa Margarita Catholic. And he's a guy that, I kind of didn't mention last time, but I probably should have had it in there. But then there's some athletes. Like there's a guy like, Josiah Brown. Out of New York, do you recruit him as a receiver? He kind of prefers that. but Notre Dame sees him as a safety. So you got to watch a guy like that and kind of find a spot for him because he's a really good player. And then there's intriguing guys like Bronte Johnson right here in my backyard in Fort Wayne and Northside, an in-state kid. I personally think he's got a chance to be a special safety. He's a good receiver too, no question about it. So there's some guys, and I have full confidence that Chancey Stuckey is going to land his guys at the receiver position moving forward. So let's go on to the next question. Let me just find my spot here. And where were we? KC, Dan. Any Davis 2. Why do you think the fans in the stadium seem to love Drew Pine, but the fans online disdain him? Any Davis 2. I think that is an interesting. I've seen it, and I absolutely don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't understand why people have some weird disdain toward Drew Pine. He is a guy that I think can win a ton of games for Notre Dame this year. He is a extremely well-liked guy in the locker room. Guys are going to play just as hard for him as they did for Tyler Wagner. He's a veteran. He's got the moxie, the confidence. I know, I get it. Everybody sees him, and he's not super tall, and he doesn't have elite arm strength. But this is a guy that I feel confident goes into Notre Dame Stadium this weekend, gets a win against Cal, and he is a guy, in my opinion, no question, could lead this team to 10 straight wins. He's not a guy who is going to hurt this program, hurt this team, and is going to be the reason they lose games moving forward. Is he going to play perfect? No. But he's not a guy that will lose games for this team, and I think people need to rally around him because I know the players and the staff absolutely are. Kind of touched on this. 23 quarterbacks Notre Dame's in contact with: B.L. Casburn, Avery Johnson, Kenny Minchie, and there is another guy out there, but again, just waiting to kind of get the green light on mentioning it. But again, priority number 1 seems to be, ideally CJ Carr reclassifying. Same thing on 23 quarterbacks. Let me see here. Which position group do you think Notre Dame did the best recruiting for the 23 class? I definitely like what they did in the secondary, and that obviously involves keeping Peyton Bowen, the 5-star safety out of Texas. If you can keep him and you pair him with a guy like 4-star cornerbacks, Christian Gray, Micah Bell, and Adon Schuler, the other safety, that is a ridiculous haul. I mean, those are difference makers, game changers, guys that you can, really push to that next level to win a national championship with. And, then you add a guy like Ben Minnick to the group, a guy who is a tough physical player. Some see that guy eventually growing into a linebacker. I absolutely think he can play safety. That's a really, really good group. And I would put that group amongst, the rest of the country. You can't go wrong with the offensive line. You look at the wide receivers, they land some really, really good players. I don't know, man. That's a tough question to answer because I just feel like this class, and rightfully so, is a top 5 recruiting class nationally. Man, you keep Peyton Bowen in this group, maybe add 1 or 2 guys, add like a Jeremiah Love as an athlete, receiver, running back. This class has a chance to really separate Notre Dame from a lot of schools when you're trying to compete for a title. Let me see, quarterback. Pin and poll. Given the difficulty Notre Dame has had in the past 2 cycles keeping distant recruits committed, CJ Williams, Keon Keeley, it looks like he's talking about Peyton Bowen, Marion Walker. Do you think Notre Dame will use that to inform how they set up the board moving forward? No. I mean, they're gonna recruit the best of the best. I think they'll try to keep their hand out of the cookie jar a little too long if they're having issues and guys are being a little flaky and things like that. But you got to go after the best. That's what Notre Dame does. They recruit nationally, and you can't let a few, I'm not calling them bad eggs, you can't let a few guys that are, I'll just call them a little flaky, really sour your taste, your recruiting efforts, and really make you change things up. They want to push for the best in the country, and rightfully so, and they should be doing that. And you just keep attacking. Put your head down and go after it, and see what happens. You're going to win a lot more of those battles than you're going to lose them. TJ from PA 70. Tom, how does the staff prioritize size on the defensive line? It appears to the untrained eye that more size in the interior might make a difference. I agree. I think it's definitely a key, and that is absolutely something that Al Washington is going towards. Big-bodied kids, athletic, guys that can really. I think their key is they want guys to play all over the defensive line, mix and match, move them around, get creative, and I think that's going to be their priority moving forward above anything else. If Carr reclassified to 2023, does that hurt our chances with Ryan Wingo? Kind of touched on this a little bit. Irish 2025. I think Ryan Wingo is leaning towards Notre Dame. Far from a slam dunk. Like, don't get any crazy ideas that he's going to commit tomorrow or anything. But I don't know. They're so close that I think, like, if you get a guy like CJ Carr in the building already and you know he's locked in, I think it helps rather than hurts with a guy like Ryan Wingo. But all in all, there is no concerns about CJ Carr right now. Irish 2025, again, besides Peyton Bowen and 23, are there anyone else ND is really concerned about losing? I don't think so. Not to my knowledge at this point. There's guys, Jaden Osbury, four-star linebacker, who's from Louisiana, has got a brother at Auburn. He's going to have schools coming after him. He's going to take visits to Auburn. It is what it is. You just kind of deal with it. But nobody's expressed anything to the Notre Dame staff in the group chat with the other commits, or even kind of privately behind the scenes that they are wavering due to the start. I think it makes it tough to land new guys, new names, but I don't think it's anything that people need to be freaking out. I know there was some chatter about Charles Jagasaw in Michigan was going to continue to, recruit him and turn up the heat for the elite offensive tackle. But again, he picked Notre Dame for a bunch of reasons, and they're all still there. And he has a lot of respect for Harry Houston, and Houston will get this group, rolling in the right direction. So he's not a guy that I'm all that concerned about. But in the end, if guys want to flip, they want to flip. You want guys that want to be there at Notre Dame, and I think Notre Dame's gonna be fine. Mr. P247, what do you typically eat for breakfast? Not a lot of breakfast. Get up to work out, and then after that, I'll have a coffee. Maybe make a quick Starbucks run. Have a protein bar, something kind of minimal to kind of get the day going. But I gotta have some coffee. Caleb Hansel, 2016. Compared to all the other schools and official visits, do you prefer Notre Dame having their big summer events in June, July, or is it more beneficial to have the event closer to the beginning of fall camp? Basically, is it more beneficial to be the school they saw first or being fresh in their mind? Kind of that second question. I used to go back and forth about that. It's like you want to set the bar, set the tone as a great first visit. But I always like getting that last visit, man. You want to kind of leave that perfect taste in their mouth of like, hey, this is the place to be. Leave that lasting impression. Every kid is different, and that's probably the biggest takeaway is what's going to work for one kid's not going to work for another. Jeremiah Love, perfect example. He was at Notre Dame last weekend. He's going to go to A&M this weekend. Notre Dame absolutely can still land him. They seem to think he's going to end up at Notre Dame. We'll see. I mean, I've always been pretty leery about A&M in big recruiting battles, and they badly want Jeremiah Love. So if Notre Dame can get that kid, it's a big win, but it's really an impressive win because he really is picking Notre Dame for all the right reasons. So we'll see what happens. We should know in the next few weeks. Southern ND 83. Do we recruit the state of Alabama much? A lot of talent down here. Yeah, I mean they do. They absolutely recruit the state of Alabama, but not as much as I agree with you that I would like. But I think that all the top guys usually stay in state for a particular school. That's right there. So kind of hard to argue with that. But there is a ton of untapped talent in Alabama. And a lot of those guys are late bloomers too, which we saw in the 22 class. GWeave 5, how many losses will it take to start hurting Notre Dame in recruiting? If they have a really bad season, say they go 2-10, I think that's gonna make it pretty difficult to hold on to some of these guys, just because it's cut and dry, and Marcus Freeman saying this, and the staff saying this, and all of a sudden the end result is not what anybody expected. But I don't see that happening, so I don't think that anything is going to hurt recruiting this cycle as long as they do what I expect and win more games than lose. But it all starts this weekend against Cal. Let's keep it going. DOB 12 with losing 5 stars Dante Moore, Keon Keeley, and with Peyton Bowen still a coin flip. What lessons learned can the staff do not? What lessons learned can the staff do to not lose those 5 stars in the future and ensure they sign? For example, not allowing officials matching NIL. I don't see a time where Notre Dame's going to ever match NIL with certain programs in the country, so you can roll that one out. But I will say they will do a great job once you're actually at Notre Dame and well beyond in terms of giving you an idea and setting you up financially, getting you an idea of what you could possibly make down the road. But again, they're not gonna play the upfront money game, especially not for a lot of money. And for example, not allowing official visits. I mean, I respect it and I like it. But again, like a guy like Peyton Bowen, like you can tell him, hey, if you're going to take official visits, I said the same thing to Justin Rhett. We're going to move on and we're going to try to fill your spot. I said the same thing to Keon Keeley. There's ways around it. They're going to, especially in this day and age, they're going to find ways to take the unofficials. They'll get the money to take the trips and just to make sure they can afford the unofficials. So there's ways around it. It's a tough rule to implement, but again, just stick to what got you here, stick to what Notre Dame's all about, and let the rest kind of play out. There's nothing you can really do about it. This NIL stuff it makes it really challenging. That's why there's a lot of coaches I talk to across the country that are getting burnt out. They're tired of dealing with it. They're tired of having kids locked in, and all of a sudden they, flip at the last second or have a change of heart because a financial package showed up. It's tough. It's tough to deal with. So I get why these guys are contemplating leaving for the next best job that opens up at the NFL level and things like that. Golden Boy 11-12, with Notre Dame having Keon officially visit so early, they lost the ability to have him be on an official visit later. Do you think the staff will approach that differently? No, because it really wouldn't have mattered. I mean, I know Andrew Ivins, our 24/7 Sports national analyst, raised that question. If they had that in the back of their pocket, would they be able to get Keon back at some point and really impress them this fall? But when certain kids make up their mind and they're not feeling it anymore, I don't think a game day visit is really going to be a absolute difference maker for a kid that's been at Notre Dame multiple times and decided that he wants to be elsewhere. So I don't think that's going to matter. But I think the big recruiting weekends where they're taking their officials are great and they go over really well, and you get build that bond, that camaraderie with a lot of guys. And I think we've seen a lot more hits than misses. So I think they should stick doing it with how they're doing it, and then try to get people back for unofficials like they're going to do for the Clemson game and get all those guys back on campus together. DOC Irish, who is the most important 23 committed recruit other than Peyton Bowen? Who is the most important 23 uncommitted recruit the Irish have a legit chance to land? I'll answer that one first. Jeremiah Love is probably the biggest deal for Notre Dame remaining in 2023. He's a pretty talented running back, a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield, a guy who could line up out wide as a receiver and run clean routes. So you're always looking to add talent on the offensive side of the ball, and he is a guy who can absolutely do it tenfold. I mean, he can play. Jeremiah Love can absolutely play, and that would be a big win for Notre Dame. Most important commit for 23 outside of Peyton Bowen. I'm really high on Christian Gray. I've talked about that before. I think he's a guy who can be an absolute difference maker at corner. I talked about Adon Schuler at safety. Tremendous talent, especially if you lose a guy like Peyton Bowen. You need a big-bodied, rock star type of kid in the back end. But I also really like a guy like Jaden Greathouse, who I think is a very solid, close to, in my opinion, at the collegiate level, close to a can't-miss guy. No, he's not a blazer. I think he runs 4.8 flat 40, maybe high 4.7s right now. But he is a guy that I just think is a terrific receiver. I think, in my opinion, he's a top 100 talent. And I think he's a guy that can come in right away and make an impact on the opposite side of the ball. So I'd probably lean him. Just him, maybe Christian Gray on the other side. And Jeffers, any new 2023 Viper names? Not really. I promise you, at irishillustrated.com, right on the Four Horsemen Lounge, I will drop all the new names. But right now, other than the normal guys we've mentioned, there's really nobody else that Notre Dame even wants out right now. They've been very quiet about that position. Um, with the guys that I've mentioned before, and Herring and Bradley and Samuel and Pemba, I don't feel great about any of them, to be honest. So maybe there's going to be a guy who emerges. I know that they are looking at a ton of film and looking for guys that are great fits. So now that we have a couple weeks of footage coming out for these guys in their senior season, that's going to allow some names to emerge. So I have a feeling we'll get a couple of names here soon and likely some new offers. Gavin Yu, what do you believe the recruiting timeline will be for Tayshawn Lyons, the 4-star receiver that's visiting this weekend? That one's kind of a mystery to me because there's schools like Michigan State that have some optimism. Penn State jumped in, I think yesterday when this gets released on Friday, it'll be on Thursday. Penn State jumped in with a new scholarship offer. That's intriguing to him. So it also, on the flip side, it wouldn't shock me if he left committed to Notre Dame this weekend. So I think that there's some teams in there that are going to be a factor. I know Washington's still pushing hard and a couple others. So I'm just I'll be prepared for a commitment this weekend. I'm not guaranteeing it, but I'm also not ruling it out. So just going to have to, short answer would be he doesn't really know yet. But put it that way, I will be prepared this weekend if he decides to do it because there's been a lot of pro Notre Dame chatter behind the scenes. Gavin, you have seen Emil Wagner, the 2022 offensive tackle signee around campus. He seems to be very slow to put on weight. Do you see Notre Dame continue to recruit undersized O-line because of predicted potential? I think you have to. These guys, there's a lot of people that said Joe Alt was too lean, and why are they recruiting him? And then he started to quickly pack on the pounds. He became one of the best players in the country, but one of the best offensive linemen in the country. And now, obviously, everybody's excited about his future at Notre Dame, and he's starting now. That could be Emil Wagner a year from now, or 2 years from now. Yeah, he's a little slow about it, and I'll never forget him at the All-American Bowl when he was just swimming in the jersey, which I've never seen before. But no, that's a kid right there with so much potential. You just kind of wait it out. You bring him in, you stock him away, let him hit the weight room, just feed him, and see what happens because there's so much to like about a kid like that. He's going to be a good one. Conversations with Notre Dame and Tyler Parker. He's so young. I mean, there's nothing planned for a game day visit. I don't think he's going to be on campus this year. 2025 kid, so don't worry about that one too much at this point. He's got a long way to go, that's for sure. But he's the guy that, for those that the casual fans, he was the guy that was kind of blowing up, looking all jacked and muscular, and he's picked up a handful of offers to this point. But I have not heard about him taking any visits this fall to Notre Dame. That would be ideal, though, but we'll see what happens there. Gavin, you one more. Have you watched any of Xavier Wangpa's film at Iowa this year? Do you believe he was big of a recruiting miss as we felt at the time last year prior to his commitment to Iowa? I haven't seen much of him. I'm not going to lie. I kind of get my hands full with this interesting start for Notre Dame. But, I mean, I don't even care, to be completely honest, how he's looked through a handful of games so far at Notre Dame, or so far at Iowa, because that kid has a chance to be an absolute difference maker. And, I'm not going to put too much stock into a kid as a true freshman, whether it's really good or really bad. That kid is so athletic. He's gonna learn, develop, continue to get better and better. And if things don't work out at safety, he could be a dynamic wide receiver. So, freaky athlete, and I have nothing but high hopes for his future. I think he's going to be a good one in time. If he misses, he misses, but that would surprise me, to be completely honest, because in person, he looked great at the All-American Bowl. Gavin, you will wrap it up with one more question. I have heard that many current players are assigned, quote, hosts for recruits who are visiting for games. Just to interrupt, that is usually just for official visits, sometimes unofficials, but usually they're just kind of, those are the overnight visits. But anyway, what responsibilities are usually included in that role? Does that role change when the team morale is very low, such as following a loss to Marshall? Usually, especially on official visits, you're going to be accompanying them to dinner, which is usually at Ruth's Chris. You're going to take them out, hang out with them, get them to feel what it's like as a student athlete at Notre Dame, kind of show them that there is actually fun to be had. good, clean, honest fun to be had at Notre Dame, and you just want to show them a good time. And really, and for the players that are hosting, you're trying to make sure that this is a kid that fits. They're going to fill out um, questionnaires and forms, both sides, the recruit and the host, and they're going to have conversations with the coaching staff and player personnel people, and that's where they find out, like, oh, this kid, you get a red flag about him, and he didn't have a good time. We could tell, and he was very uninterested. But on the flip side, like, this kid loved it. You can get a lot of intel that way. This kid loved it, had a great time, or they spent a ton of money at the bookstore, things like that. Like, you can always pick up little hints and tidbits during a visit, but I don't see much of that changing regarding a loss to Marshall. And it's kind of interesting. Like, so for example, Jeremiah Love was on campus last week. Does he not pick Notre Dame because they lost to Marshall in a game that he didn't even play in, he didn't contribute in, or does he pick Notre Dame, as part of the reason why, because of the fact that he's like, I could have made a difference in this thing, and I'm the guy who could push them over the top to get them to beat, the teams that they should be beating, or a kid that visited Columbus for the Notre Dame Ohio State game. He's like, man, maybe I really like Notre Dame, and I feel like if I was at Notre Dame and I was in that position, I feel like I could have pushed them over the hump and really, close the gap against Ohio State. So there's reasons for all that kind of stuff, but I don't think kids care all that much being on campus for a loss. I think the commits are disappointed. Obviously, the players and coaches are disappointed, but I really don't see it as a case where too many recruits come to campus, even in a loss where it's a great environment still, and they're just like, this isn't for me. Like, I don't want to be around a losing program, things like that, because it's one or two losses. Now, Notre Dame loses all 12. Yeah, we're going to have issues, but I'm not expecting that to happen, and hopefully we'll see some change this weekend because it makes it a lot more fun at Irish Illustrated. But that wraps it up. That's the last question. We will see you guys next week, but as always, please stay locked to irishillustrated.com. All weekend long, we're going to have a ton of content. Myself, Kevin Sinclair, Tim Priester, Tim O'Malley, Jack Freeman, Len Clark as well. We will have a ton of content all weekend long at irishillustrated.com. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.